Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, late morning. This is Amy, Mystic Rose Tarot, and to my left or to your right, depending on how you're viewing this, I have Michelle Marie of Astrological Tarot. We are going to be discussing, as you saw in the description, tarot and astrology, how it's been an influence for us, how it's shape shifted our spiritual practice, and directionally where we would like to go on this. But this is going to be more of Michelle's platform. I'm going to ask her a few questions about her background, how she got into astrology and tarot, because apparently tarot came after astrology, and then we're going to just keep everything very basic. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to make comments. If you have a question for Michelle, put everything in caps. If you have a question for Michelle, put it in caps. If you have a question for myself, the same thing, go ahead and put it in caps. I am trying to bring up, I'm sorry, bear with me here one moment. I am trying to bring up I can't see it, Michelle. Can you see it on your side? The live?
Yes, I can see the comments.
Okay. Alrighty. Okay. So I'll work on that separately, try to get it so I could see on my side. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. So, Michelle, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into first your spiritual practice, and then from there, where did it lead into the astrology?
Okay, well, I was raised Catholic, so I went to church every Sunday, Mass, I should say, and read the Bible front to back because I'm a reader. That's just ever since I was a little girl. It's if there was a book in the house, I read it, and I kind of didn't really get as much out of it as I wanted to, if that makes any sense. Like, I love the Bible. I loved, what I was reading. And I believed that, the teachings that were there were beautiful teachings, but the people around me weren't practicing them. It was kind of a very kind of hypocritical environment because I would read the book and say, well, wait a minute, you said this and that. And the real kind of traumatizing element for me getting into spirituality was my priest was one of the priests that were caught molesting children. So this person that we were supposed to be taking our spiritual instruction from was not the best person. So, I still have my Bibles and everything else, but I wanted to kind of expand the way that I looked at the divine, that I looked at the universe, that I looked at spirit as a whole. And as a child, I always felt very connected to nature and very connected to just being outside. So when I was 9 years old, I joined the Girl Scouts so I could go on camping trips and go outside and have, fun and just be around other girls and learn about nature and survival. And we were earning our astronomy badge one weekend. And this was on the island of Hawaii. Be around other girls and learn about nature and survival. And okay, sorry. I thought I heard a back them. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So they set up all the telescopes and, this is on the island of Hawaii. So it was just the most stunning view of the stars and the few planets that we can see. And we're identifying the different constellations. And my best friend at the time said, "Oh, I'm an Aquarius." And I looked at her and I said, "What's that?" I'm 9. I don't know what an Aquarius is. And she goes, it's an astrological sign and it's represented by, she goes, Delphinus up there. And I go, okay. So what does that have to do with astronomy? And she goes, "Oh, and my stone is an amethyst." And I'm like, okay, now I'm even more confused. So being the book reader, I went to the library and I got books on stones and crystals and the stars and the constellations and astrology in addition to astronomy. And I just got hooked. And, I moved around a lot as a kid because I grew up in, military housing and bases, and we moved around all the time. And so I didn't really get a chance to build a lot of long lasting friendships because we moved. So my way of getting to know people and from school to school each time we moved was to try to guess their sign by asking them all of these questions. And they would happily tell me the answers because they wanted to know. So it was kind of my icebreaker to get past the book and into this more social spheres of humanity. And, looking back, that's pretty clever for a kid. But
Yeah.
fast forward, I go to college. I got some great scholarships. I ended up at a private university studying writing, rhetoric, and culture because I think other cultures and ways of living are absolutely fascinating. And I was joining a sorority. It was a very academic based sorority. A lot of Catholic girls and Jewish girls and people from Japan and people from. It was just a amazing plethora of women from all over the globe. And I would ask them questions and get their signs. And by this time I was really good at it because, I'm 18, 19 years old. I've been doing it for half my life. And I got into the sorority, and one of the gals was like, you should be doing this because you're really good at it and people are really interested in it. And of course, this was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so there was a metaphysical clinic that one of the gals in my sorority turned me on to. And she goes, I talked to the owner. She said, you should come down there and just, read her chart and maybe she'll hire you to do some readings. And I'm like, that sounds fabulous. Cause I wasn't really supported a whole lot. So I had a lot of odd jobs in college. I was a tour guide. I was an RA. I was a Greek house coordinator. I was, painting houses and walking dogs. And so I was like, $20 an hour to read someone's chart. Are you kidding me? I'll take that all day long. And this was back when like my rent was $400 a month.
Yeah.
So yeah, $20 was a lot of money.
It is.
And so I go down there and I read her chart and she's like, yeah, come on in. What hours do you want? And I'm like, this is great. And so I did that for a while and I really enjoyed it. So it actually paid more than the nursing assistant job that I had for a while. So it was really, it was a great way to support myself. And it was something that I was passionate about. And then fast forward a little bit more, I was also going to this church in the area where I met my ex-husband. It was an evangelical church and they seemed, open-minded and, just, they weren't, as it turned out. My ex ended up burning my books and his family just threw everything away and said, you can't do this, you can't do that. And so I kind of hid for a while and stayed away from my practice. And that's when I heard the Blue Jays in your background, they showed up and just started, I was a marathon runner. So I'd go out on runs and I just see Blue Jays and crows and owls. And nature kind of got me back into thinking about astrology again, because it reminded me of being out in the woods as a little girl and studying the stars and, getting into my books and just feeling one with the earth and nature and this beautiful universe that we're living in. So flash forward, I got a divorce. I'm now remarried to an incredible triple Capricorn who is extremely supportive and supports my practice. And I went from not just Western astrology, but transitioned recently into Vedic astrology. And I'm taking classes from a woman called Kamala Sutton. She's been doing this for over 30 years. She's from India. She's highly recognized. She goes to conferences all over the world and temples, and she's got a number of books out that I've read, and she teaches classes, which I take part in. And so I've really enjoyed that. So I'm kind of stepping into this new chapter in my life of doing what I want and living the life that I've always wanted to live. I know this sounds weird, but I eat what I want to eat. I wake up when I want to wake up. I work when I want to work. It's so freeing and so wonderful.
That's the beauty. That's probably not the proper word, but that's one of the perks when you're trying to find your own path. You're trying to find, what is it? Am I an artist? Am I going to be a politician? Am I involved in religion? Do I start my own company? You have to go through all these hurdles, and a lot of people don't want to explore it. They want things to be immediate. And sometimes these things happen. Sometimes these things happen quickly because it's a calling. You start listening to these signs that come to you, and you start realizing, oh, okay, so I wasn't expecting to start my own company, but I'm doing it. And you hear a common pattern, like the way that you were discussing, you went through different things to find out where you wanted to be. And so I think it's really important for anyone who is trying to find a direction for themselves is, I don't think you stated this, but I felt it. You just have to trust. That's very important. You just got to trust your instincts, and that's very scary because people like that sounds kind of far fetched, and you will have some people who will not support you because they think where you want to go is not where you should be, and that's not proper. You have to
Mhm.
follow what you believe in and trust. So, and you did, you felt the calling. And I remember you sharing the story. If you could share it very quickly, you were talking about, I believe it was Kamala, that you were taking a course, and I asked you a question if you felt when you moved into Vedic astrology, if this was supposed to be where you needed to be. It's a very interesting story, everyone.
Okay, so I'm in Kamala Sutton's Rules and Interpretations class, and in this class we go into the various yogas of the chart. And I'm not talking about getting on a mat and doing, different stretches and poses. That's Hatha yoga. What this is it's a type of Jnana yoga. It's looking at your chart and finding energies in it. And so we're going through Navamsa, which is the D9 chart, which shows us our dharma, our path, our spiritual mission in this life. And
What
she
was it
looks at
called again? I'm
the
sorry.
Navamsa chart. It's the D9. It's nine divisions into the Rasi chart, which is the original birth chart. So
Okay.
there's a lot of charts in Vedic astrology. It's very fascinating. But so we're going from the Rashi and then into the Navamsa chart, and she goes, "Wow, Michelle, your Atma Karaka, which is the significator of your soul, is in Ashleisha." And then it goes into Ravati. They're both ruled by Mercury, and they're highly spiritual mystic signs. And then she goes, and then he's with Ketu, which is in Jayeshta, which is the third mystic sign. So Vedic astrology is not only something that you're set to do in this life, but you've done it in past lives. So you're bringing it into this life and making it. And she goes, in your 10th house, it will be your career. And I just went, really? Because I'm here and that's what I want to do. And I was so excited. It was just so much confirmation all at once of, okay, I'm on the right path, because I was told by so many people that, not just in my family, but just around me, that this isn't something that you can make a living at. This isn't something that you should be doing. It's silly, And I just got told that it was my dharma. It was something that was going to just line up for me, and so far it has.
Question for you. Did you compare the chart, the Vedic astrology chart reading that you got for this versus Western? Did Western also show similar signs, or did it kind of give you a different direction? Were you able to compare the two if you did a Western chart?
Yes, and I also teach Western and do Western charts because I believe that both practices are relevant. And for instance, in my Western chart, I'm a Leo sun, and I'm just in the first few degrees of Leo. And in my Vedic chart, I'm in Cancer, I'm in Pushya. But what's interesting is the first few degrees of Leo, excellent teachers. Teachers are found within the first decan of Leo. I don't know if you knew
Oh,
that
I
sun
didn't know
sign, the
that.
first
Okay.
decan. Yeah.
Zero
And
to
that was confirmed by Monte Farber. He was the creator of Karma cards, and he's also a very well-noted Western astrologer. And he told me that. Goes, oh yeah, teacher. And then if you look at my Vedic chart, Pushya, the degree that I'm in, is teacher. So Pushya is represented by Brihaspati, which is Jupiter, who's the teacher of the Devas. So he's able to teach Vedic knowledge. And so it's just interesting that those two elements are in both charts. So you can definitely tie in the
And they're
messages.
very strong. They're very strong. The Leo, and who was the Vedic diva? You were saying Deva.
Deva. Yeah,
Sorry,
it's just
I'm sorry.
God. Basically, it's like there are many gods in the Vedic sciences, and it's in Hinduism. So many
But to
gods.
have it fall very similar with the Vedic and the astrology to show that you are a teacher, that you have knowledge to share, is very. It's like it's right there. So I almost want to say, I guess there is some truth. I shouldn't say guess, but there is truth in the stars. if
Oh,
you read
yes.
them, yeah, if you read them carefully. And curious to ask too is, was tarot still coming into your direction while all this transformation was going on with you? Or
Well,
were you?
tarot came later.
Yeah.
So when I was going through my divorce, my intuition was just nothing because I was in a domestic violence situation. I had to, again, change my identity, get away. It was not good. So long, and I was completely impoverished. So I had no place to go. I was homeless. I was going back and forth to the women's shelter. I was a mess. And so I had this tarot deck, and it was my first Rider Waite deck. And I just broke it out and I started doing spreads for myself every day. Like, what can I expect today? Because I can't go in and trust what I'm thinking or feeling because I'm just shattered inside, you know? Uh, I didn't have the support of my immediate family at that time, and I did not have the support of clearly my ex or his family. So it was just like, what do I do? Where do I go? I'm just terror, you know, I'm just scared. And fear really does get in the way of intuition. And I'm
Oh,
sure a lot of people can relate to that.
yeah.
So I did a spread for myself every day, and I kept a little journal in my backpack, and I just wrote down, okay, this is what I can expect today. Oh God, reverse justice card. This is not going to be a good day in court. And then he wouldn't show up, you know, or the reverse. I would get the seven of swords all the time, and it's like, great, he opened up another credit card in my name and charged it up, you know, stuff like that. So the cards were literally telling me what was going on, that things that I couldn't see or even know about, that were
Mhm.
kind of giving me a heads up for the day, so that I wasn't just like hit again and again and again with this energy, this very
Yeah.
negative energy that I was trying to get away from. And it took over 5 years uh, to get away from the the situation.
Yeah.
So the divorce was almost as long as the marriage was, which was insane. But I did get out. The tarot did provide me with a lot of the direction that I needed, and it kind of kept my mind off of reality. I don't want to say, I just the negativity of the
Yeah.
situation, because you look at that future card and think, okay, there is a way out of this. Like, okay, this is what I'm in right now. I mean, I'm not sleeping, you know, I'm like nine of swords. I'm just a wreck at night, but the star, okay, you know, or I get the tower and it's like, okay. And then I get, you know, the empress, you know, so there's always a positive outcome to all of these negative situations. And I focused on that rather than the situation that I was in, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
No, it does. It does. And it's, I think, in a separate discussion that we had, um, I had mentioned, I think for the most part, anyone who has a tarot practice, they're usually exploring the tarot because they're coming from a place where there's something not going right,
Yeah.
either in their life or there's something that they need to understand about themselves. And they can't find it, or they don't trust the external sources that are out there, different forms
Yes.
of religion, different forms of belief systems. And in a way, the tarot and also, I guess, astrology is almost neutral. Well, I guess astrology is not neutral because you were born on a certain day, time,
It's an
location.
energy.
So it's, yeah, it's already set. But with the tarot, it's kind of like your friend who doesn't know you yet until you start working with the deck and you start seeing how some decks communicate with you in different ways. There is one deck that I worked with that just that kept giving me very direct answers.
Mm.
I was like, that's cool. That's what I need. It doesn't beat around the bush. The energy is coming very strong through that deck. And so I it's the tarot I like about that because it's not a physical body. I don't judge it, but well, I guess you can judge it by the way it looks because of the art, but it doesn't have that kind of emotional connection like someone does in person. Uh, oops, Blue Jay just went right into the window. Please don't do that.
Oh
It's
no.
okay. It flew off. Um, so I'm just sidetracking here a little bit because the tarot for me, that's what I appreciated, because if there was no one that I could speak to at the time or no one that I felt comfortable with, I can make reference to this.
Mm.
to the tarot. I can make reference to my other forms of practice. Um, but for the more specifics, the details of what's going on, that's where the astrology comes in. And what was your first experience when you did your first chart for someone else? How did it feel? What was the result of that experience that you had?
Well, professionally, the first chart I ever did, the person really told me a lot of information up front because people don't normally go to astrologers and say, "My life is perfect. How much more perfect can it be?" No, they come to you because they have a deep-seated concern or a fear or an anxiety, or they're going through stuff. And so this person told me a lot of really dark, deep stuff. And it was our first session because I mentioned, your Mars is in Cancer, mine is too. And that's not an easy placement because Mars is debilitated in Cancer. So you might have gone through X, Y, and Z based on the other, configurations of your planets. And she just broke down and told me everything. And, I gave her a hug and I said, it's going to be okay. And, the owner of the metaphysical shop walked by. She goes, Mars and Cancer. She's going to tell all her friends. And so all these women started showing up and going, ah! Like, because that's Mars and Cancer. I'm a mother. I was literally called mom in college because, like, if someone was sick from, getting hungover or, I was also a nursing assistant. So I had all of the credentials to, like, medically treat people at a certain degree. They'd call me mom. They're like, go get mom, So, I was an RA. I was a Greek house coordinator. So it was just kind of part of the job. Anyway, I was making sure everyone was safe and healthy and that the building wasn't going to burn down. So, so I'm sitting there and, so she says, yeah, a lot of people, and she was correct. So she told all of her friends and they started coming in and saying, well, my husband's doing this, or I'm going through this with my son, or, this happened to me as a child, and we'd work through it. And so it kind of turned into a therapy practice. And I know it's different for different astrologers because some astrologers are, they're more business minded and they want to talk financials and they attract this, corporations with big portfolios. And I can do that too. But at that time, I was attracting women that were in pain and they were coming and I was providing some kind of relief by reading their chart and saying, well, this is your personality. These are the things that you can expect to happen in your life. And, just be calm and, be you. And, just having someone listen and offer comfort is huge in this world. And I think it's becoming even rarer now that we're more separate with technology.
Yeah, it's different, and with the lockdown and things slowly now opening up, it's been interesting just to see in the last few weeks. I mentioned it yesterday when I was doing my live that I think because we are in summer, everyone seems to be a little bit lighter. Okay, I guess it could be different for people, but I think it's just the fact that people are now able to go and see their mom, their dad, their, their family. That seems to have been the big priority for a lot of people. I want to see my family. I'm really worried. They're not doing good and they don't understand, depending on what's going on with them, they don't understand what's going on. So I've, I've been feeling a lightness in all this. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I've been doing readings in the last few months at a shop. So the energy is different when I meet people, and I love it. And I've said this before to people. It's like I really look forward to doing readings for people in person again because I feel more. And it can be just as exhausting as doing these live readings, but what's different is you have that force right there in front of you. And so being empathic, it's been challenging. I've had to really, you know, people keep saying to me, Amy, put that boundary, put that wall there. And I do, but what happens is I get so much information coming through the tarot that I can't stop. It's like I feel
You're a
like
channeler. Yeah.
yeah. So like when I was doing your reading yesterday and that card, that extra card that came up, and I did that last reading, you were saying, I think that card could have been for this person, for the following person I was doing the reading for. And it's possible, it can happen. But yeah, when you become that individual that people want to go back to and talk to. There's obviously that intimacy and trust that they feel, and nurturing that they feel from you. But we also have to be careful not to have people take advantage of that, and then it gets drained. So that's what I wanted to say. With all these individuals coming to you, you have you have to keep that boundary. You have to keep that grounding. And it's hard for me. That's why my lives go on for so long, because it's like, okay, yes, next I want to be there and support.
Yes, your live yesterday was excellent, and the message that you gave me was on point. I really appreciated it. Definitely resonated.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. Okay, so let's let's go a little bit with astrology and
Okay.
merging it with the tarot. Hi, Meg Rose. How are you? Welcome. Thank you for coming. So, with tarot and astrology, how would you introduce someone who wants to learn astrology and bring it into the tarot? They already have a tarot practice, but they want to start bringing in something of astrological influences. How would you guide an individual like that?
Oh, well, the first thing I would do is tell them to either go online or go to their favorite metaphysical bookstore and just look at astrological tarot decks. And look at the books, look at especially if they have a demo out, and really get a feel for the different decks that they see. Because if you're already a tarot reader, you're used to working with it as a divinatory tool.
Correct.
So really finding the right deck for you, I think, is key. Like my first astrological deck was Karma Cards by Monte Farber. And the reason I liked it was because, like, for instance, he has Venus here, and it goes into all of the attributes of Venus. And it was my way of being able to connect with clients and give them a visual of their chart. And he has the houses and the signs and everything else. So that was kind of my first stepping stone. But depending on what kind of tarot practice you have, you could be more into nature. You could be more into the Rider-Waite. You could be more into maybe like past lives or oracle cards. And there are so many different astrology decks that may speak to you in the particular way that you channel, that I would recommend doing that. And then if you haven't had your chart read before, I would recommend having it read by someone who is a professional, who's been doing it for a while, who can introduce you to the basics of your chart, what your houses are, what your planets are, what the different aspects in your chart are. And the really great thing about going to a professional like you or me is that it's a good stepping block, because starting with your own chart is the best way to go, because you've been through those experiences. So if you have, let's say, Mars and Capricorn, and you have this amazing head for business that can just start companies out of nothing, well, there you go. You know that about yourself. As opposed to me, Mars and Cancer, who's more of an empath and a mother figure to others in the workplace. So it's getting to know yourself through astrology, finding a deck, incorporating it into readings for yourself, and also into your, just integrating it into your practice, and personalizing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would suggest. Like, because you more than anybody else. So learning about your chart before you learn about other people's charts. I mean, that's how I started, and it worked for me. But
I agree. I think when you're going to bring astrology into the tarot, definitely have your chart read. And not to deviate, because I know your focus is on Vedic astrology, but I feel just start with a Western astrology chart. Just start with something very straightforward. Know where your signs are, the relationships they have with the planets and the houses, and work from there. And get familiar with all these relationships that they have. It may be a lot too, okay? Because planets, you got to focus on the 7 traditional planets, and then the outer planets of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. That adds into it in relationship to the signs. Then the houses. The houses are also ruled by their own signs. And
Yep.
then if you're, if see, I have to slow down and think. So if you have the houses with their own signs, and then you have a planet and sign placement that differs in those houses, you have to start breaking it down very simple. And that's where I am. And I think that's as far as I want to go, because I'm realizing, and I have Virgo in my sixth house. So I am very particular. I can be detailed. I can get lost in the details. And
Mm.
so that's what's taking me time to understand. I don't even want to go into transits and aspects, because then I'm just like, oh wow. Because then what happens is I get overwhelmed,
Mm.
and then I forget everything that I've learned with the houses and all of that. And then I'm focusing on the aspects. So I just want to keep it for me
Hmm.
in relation to the tarot. I just want to keep it to the houses, planets, and signs. And you can read. There's this deck which I had shown earlier. I love this deck, everyone. I came across it earlier this year. It's Heavenly Bodies by Lily Ashwell. And it's a very straightforward deck. It's broken down. This isn't going to be a deck review, but it's broken down into the planets, into the signs. It's an oracle deck of sorts. And here's one of the houses. There's the birds.
There you go. They're showing up. They're communicating.
It goes into houses, and then it goes into the elements. So this deck is broken up into elements. It goes into the triplicities of mutable,
Hmm.
and it goes into the transits of conjunction. I'm showing this so that you could see it as well. But it's very simple,
Hmm.
because what I love about this deck is, because of the imagery being very soft, and it has the references to the signs and the planets in each of these cards, you can focus more on the energy of these images.
Visuals help so much.
Oh yeah. There's some astrological decks where it's very strong. You see Mercury, and it's very obvious. This deck I enjoy because it's soft,
Mm.
and it's simple, and then I can almost read this like the tarot in a
Hmm.
sense, but then apply the information that I have of the planet or the sign of the house into it. And this deck in particular, because of its soft nature, works very well with other decks. I will show. Let's see here.
Well, and I love that you pulled Mercury and Libra in the third house. That's a poet, because
Really?
Mercury in the
That was
third house is
random.
yeah, Mercury in the third house is exalted, and Libra, owned by Venus, is the ability to create beautiful communications in that house of communication. So that would be a poet, an artist of words.
Huh. So that could be for you, Gerald, because you're asking about your writing. So that card could have been for you. But anyhow, just this is the pagan netherworlds. So the
Mm.
imagery is very soft, and they can read well together. So that's one thing that I enjoy about this deck. So find that deck, like Michelle was saying, that speaks to you. You don't have to buy all the astrological decks unless you're going into working with the tarot. But let's do this. Pull the karma card that you have. You just pull one randomly. We're not doing readings. This is going to be like an exercise.
I pulled Neptune.
Okay. And then give us a breakdown in relation to, because I know already for the tarot, how you would relate this with the tarot. What's some of the energy that you can feel? We could talk about the decans too. The decans is, I'm going to do a decan reading tomorrow. Um,
Hmm.
Go ahead and explain the decans very briefly, and in relation to Neptune. and in the tarot. So what I mean
Okay.
is,
Well,
what's a card that you could identify from the tarot in relation to Neptune, and then the decan, a decan
oh
that was
goodness.
Neptune.
Okay.
Is that too much? It is too
Well,
much.
Neptune is a very watery. It's a very watery planet. I would actually put him in. Well, Neptune is basically the rose-colored glasses that we all wear to idealize situations. Okay, let's see if I can get this in.
Maybe pull back a little bit.
There
There,
we go. The
yes.
idealization of confusion regarding sacrifice. Neptune is ruled by Pisces, and Pisces is a very highly spiritual sign. And if you look at his eyes, look at his eyes, they're covered by this
Yeah.
veil. That's an elusive veil. That's like Maya. Okay. What that is those are those rose-colored glasses that make us project what we want to see in others, how we want our situation to be. It's idealizing maybe the wrong person or the wrong job or the wrong it could be a family member, it could be anything. It's over idealizing our situation in the form of projection. And it really resonates with me because it's a survival technique for a lot of empaths. If you're around, narcissistic personality types, or if you're in a really bad relationship where you think you can just fix that person, the rose colored glasses come on. So I think of Neptune is kind of like the Disney planet. I don't know if you've ever seen Beauty and the Beast. I watched it when I was a little girl, and it always took me back because, I mean, even the Disney version, the Beast kidnaps Belle, throws her physically into a dungeon, screams and yells at her and says, "You're mine." And they turned it into a love story because she could fix him. I mean, that's like domestic violence 101. So whenever I see Neptune, oh,
No, I'm saying I shouldn't laugh. Go on.
oh, go ahead. No, you're fine. I mean, whenever I see Neptune, I think of, oh, there's the Disney planet. So it's taking this really horrible situation, over idealizing it, and coming across with a message that is not so great. Now, if your Neptune is in retrograde, you can see through all the BS. You can see right through it. Most people can. And sometimes, especially as they get older, they can see through the false gurus. They can see through the illusions, and they can help other people that may not be seeing their situation for the reality that it is. So when Neptune comes up, I think of a lot of like the reverse cups, because people aren't in tune with their intuition, or they're getting messages from people that aren't good, but they think that they are good. So like the reverse page of cups would be like getting a message from a guy that you think, or a girl that you think really likes you, or a job that you think is going to be perfect, and it turns out to just be this horror show. But your idealization of it keeps you in it and keeps the negativity and the bad energy going, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, go on.
oh no, go ahead. And I don't know how that really goes into the decans, because the decans for me are the 10 degrees per sign that we use in Western astrology, and that determines what phase of the sign that you're entering
Correct.
into.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I should have stated that clearly. My apologies.
Oh, it's fine. I'm just trying to clarify.
I think what I was trying to think way in the back of my head was, what's the most recent decan? And I have to think about this because I'm working with the Unified Esoteric Tarot, which has a different system, for the Golden Dawn reference.
Mm.
What's the most recent Neptune for the decan? What's the most recent Neptune in the sign? Was there a Neptune in this month of Cancer? Was it in?
Oh, Neptune's in Pisces right now.
It
Is that what
is.
you're asking?
Okay.
Yes. And he's toward the end of Pisces, but he's just gone retrograde.
Okay.
So yeah, so he's dancing between the second and third. So
Okay.
he's been going back and forth. But yeah, so in I believe 20 degree, I can look him up right now.
Okay.
But
See, this
go
is where
ahead.
it gets complex with the decans. The decans are, as Michelle was beginning to say, each astrological month. This is my way of explaining it. Each astrological month, we go from 0 to 30 degrees, and usually for each first decan, it's about 7 to 8 days, 10 days, depending on what deck you're working with, um, how it's paired up. So 0 to 10 is usually, not usually, is set from, okay, we are going into our third decan next week. So 0 to 10 would say a little bit of Gemini, and Cancer. So I had to stop and think. And so what I feel with the 0 to 10 degrees during that week, of that first week of Cancer, I feel it also picks up a little bit of influence from the previous sign. Now
Mm,
I know some astrologers, when they work with decans, they do, um, with the tarot, they feel that they just focus on that sign in particular. It
mm.
doesn't fall back on a little bit of influence with Gemini. So how do you how do you feel about those placements in the decans? Because I feel the second decan, which we are in right now, which is 10 to 20 degrees, I feel the 10 to 20 degrees of each astrological sign in each month, I feel truly represents that sign, because it's right there. It's that first week in that sign, and I feel all that information that I get from the cards represents that astrological sign. But that's only 10 to 20. While 20 to 30, it's getting more of the later influence.
Hmm.
It's like 26 degrees in Cancer. It's getting towards that tail end. And sometimes it could start picking up influence of Leo.
Mm.
So I
Yeah.
don't know how you feel about placements astrologically.
Oh, the
When it
degrees
comes
are.
to that,
Oh,
do you feel when it's like 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, it's totally of that sign. It doesn't pick up anything from the previous sign, and it doesn't pick up anything in the sign ahead.
I agree with you in the feeling of just kind of stepping into the sign, learning a little bit about it, becoming the sign, and then moving into the next sign. I can see what process that you're going through there. That's excellent. And yeah, as you go through the degrees of that particular sign, you learn more and more about its energy and the lessons that it can provide along the way. Like, for instance, right now we're in 23 degrees 9 minutes of Neptune, to go back to that card that I had,
Okay.
and that is entering the third decan. So we embodied Neptune for a while there, and now we're retrograding, but we're heading into that third decan, and that's going to bring us into Aries. And what I think is really going on just on a worldwide level are some people are starting to open their eyes and go, am I being fooled? Am I
Hmm.
being lied to? And they're getting angry because Mars is ruled by Aries. And so I think that the energy, as Neptune continues to go through Pisces, and it's going to be a while, uh, is that we're going to go through these kind of rose-colored glasses moments, and then when Neptune goes retrograde, we kind of see the reality of our situation, and in that third decan, a little bit of anger surfaces. Because, and like you said, in the second decan, Neptune is Pisces. It's highly spiritual. It's go with the flow. It's water. It's just being in that energy.
Mhm.
Maybe consulting the tarot to make sure you're seeing the situation correctly. Toward the end, it's that person was lying to me.
Yeah.
So it's a different energy. Am I kind of catching on to where you're going with your?
Yeah, I mean, it's this is like what I was saying. I want to keep our conversation very simple, but when you get no, it's
Okay.
fine, Michelle. This is just an example that when it comes to breaking uh, the planets and their relationships, whether in the decans or in signs, it ends up becoming a rabbit hole, because
Mm,
you can write an entire book on one particular planet, because there's just so much information, and it varies. um, uh, Again, its relationship, where it's placed in the chart, its degrees. um, but do you feel with the decans, like the 0 to 10 and 20 to 30 degrees, that since those are towards the beginning and the end of their signs, that they can pull influence from the previous sign or the next sign. And let me know if that does not make sense.
Oh, it does. For instance, my moon is at 29 degrees and 56 minutes of Aquarius.
Oh my God.
So if I was literally born 5 minutes later, I would be a Pisces moon. So, and a lot of people are like, you don't really have a lot of detachment of an Aquarius. You're very warm. And I'm like, oh, it just must be my Mars in Cancer. But I also think it's because I'm on that cusp in Western astrology, right in between Aquarius and Pisces. So I do agree with you that you can take on some of the energies of the next. That's what being on a cusp is. You can take
Yeah.
on some of that energy. And in Vedic astrology, we call those Gandantas. So that's a whole other energy. And the Gandanta represents the switching from the previous energy and into a whole new way of living and doing things.
Mm.
So in Vedic astrology, that's very much a part of the practice when you're going from one sign, especially a water sign into a fire sign, because that's a whole new energy to deal with and to work with.
So in Vedic astrology, they do follow cusps.
Oh, yes.
They do.
Yes.
Do they feel it's very important, or it's just something to be mindful? How much? Because that's another thing in the astrology community. Should you follow cusps or not?
Yes, I think you should.
You should.
And
Okay.
this is just from my own person experience. If I
Yeah.
can't guess someone's sign because they're just going back and forth, I go, were you born on the 22nd of June, or were you born on the 22nd of May, or depending on what sign that they're, and they're like, how did you know my birthday? And I'm like, because you're on a cusp. So, because
Makes
you've got
sense.
this, yeah, you've got both elements just kind of at war with each other or working really well together, depending on, their personality. And I couldn't guess the sign because you're right in the middle. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
It's so with Vedic astrology, give a brief explanation about because Vedic astrology does not work with the sun signs. It works with the ascending
The ascendant and the moon are the two
in the
most
moon.
important planetary bodies. Well, ascendant is just, yeah. So basically, but the sun is included, especially if you're going through your sun dasha, and that's a whole other thing. I'll try to keep it simple. But it was developed thousands of years ago by the ancient rishis or sages of India. And this was back when you could sit down and meditate and just connect to source. This was a time when we didn't have all of these electronics. We didn't have a bunch of people. We didn't have a lot of things that we're dealing with in the more Kali Yuga stages of life, which is what we're in now, which is this more modern age of distraction, distraction, distraction.
Yeah.
So these sages were able to sit and meditate and connect to source, open up everything, and they brought this ancient Vedic knowledge and science into the culture at the time, and it turned into the first and most ancient astrology, at least documented to date. And it's called Jyotish, which is the science of light. And the whole purpose behind it is to reveal the soul that exists in all of us, the spirit. They call it the Atman. And the Atman is basically the prana, the breath that animates things. It animates the birds, it animates the plants, it animates humanity. And to be able to tap into that divine bliss, that Ananda, is the purpose of our human birth, because we are in these bodies with our chakra systems, and we can plug into that. But it's very difficult in this time because this is the darkening of the age. It's the Kali Yuga in accordance to the Vedic pantheon, the timeline that we're on. So,
What one thing that was pointed out, another friend of mine who does Western and Vedic astrology, Julianne Victoria, from Through the Peacock's Eyes. There is, I like the way she said it when I last spoke with her. She goes, "There's just a lot of doom and gloom with Vedic astrology, and that it's very heavy." And I think because there's just more information that you can pull from Vedic astrology versus Western astrology. I my assessment and not having a Vedic astrology practice, but from what I've been reading and speaking through her, and also listening to you talk about Vedic astrology, is it really focuses more on, like you're saying, the soul, the spirit.
Mhm.
You don't get that so much with astrology, Western astrology. Western astrology is more the physicalities, as like our emotions, um, our mental perspective, well-being, uh, family, how we interact with people. It doesn't, I mean, could you get almost something like the equivalent of Vedic astrology in a Western astrology chart?
Well, in Vedic astrology, it's the birth chart, the natal chart is called, it's the Rasi, it's the first chart. And then you go many divisions deep. So
That's
basically,
right.
it's like if you go to buy a house and you're looking at the outside of the house, you know the neighborhood it's in, you know who the neighbors are, you know what the house looks like. That's great. Vedic
Yeah.
astrology takes you inside the house. It takes you into the plumbing. It takes you into the foundation. It looks at that house, and then it goes, you've had previous houses. You want to check those out, and then it goes into your former lives. So it takes the personality chart that you get from Western astrology, and for most people, I do their Western chart first because
Oh,
the
you
Vedic chart
do?
is too much. Yes, I do
Okay.
their Western chart first, and I kind of get them. I used to the idea of this is what astrology is. This is your Western chart. This is your personality and how you interact with people and maybe your family, like you said, and different talents and gifts that you have in this particular life. And if they want to get deeper with me, I suggest the Vedic reading. And then we, again, go deeper and deeper and deeper because there are 60 divisions in a Vedic chart, actually 108, but I go to 60. And that goes into karmic blocks and lessons and past lives and things like that. So,
So with Vedic astrology, there's a chart that can touch upon families,
oh,
specifically
that's the
families,
D12. Yep.
career.
That's the
Um,
D10,
okay, so
the
you're
Sancha.
into this.
Oh, yeah.
Animals. Can you do
Animals.
animals?
I do charts for animals. I do.
But
So
Vedic?
yes, I my
Wow.
dog Fox. He's a triple Aries. He's actually Ravati in Vedic astrology, and I made a veterinary appointment for him, knowing that he was going to get sick because of
And
his
you did get
chart. He
sick.
got sick. He got a gastrointestinal infection because his moon is in Shravana, and it's just getting beat up right now by the other planets. It's it's an Aquarius in the Western chart. It's in Shravana Capricorn in the Vedic chart because there's that 24, 25-degree difference. But I saw that Saturn was going to go over his moon, and then Mars and Venus were going to oppose it, and then it was going to go square Uranus. And I'm like, this kid isn't going to catch a break this week. And we made an appointment for the vet because he was already starting to like act weird. And then we brought him in and we got him on an antibiotic and some antacids, and he's feeling better now. He's still cranky, cranky little man. He's,
Yeah.
in Western astrology, he's a triple Aries and he totally lives up to the name. He's my little warrior guy. But yeah, you can definitely read animals' charts and make decisions based on the
Look at
stars for them.
that.
Oh
Look
yeah,
at that.
we're all a pranic for that. That's the thing that I love about Vedic astrology is the idea that we're all connected through the prana of the source or the divine, and that we're just animations down here reacting to the planetary bodies and the stars and the Leela, which is the play of life that we're a part of. And what astrology allows you to do is go, oh, this is going to happen here, and then you prepare for it. So
I think I have to agree with you. Anything that has a life force,
mhm.
soul, energy is is a is a living entity. It goes down to
It's
plants, goes down to the tiny ants. And I'm not saying I'm the person that kind of tiptoes around ants and little, plants and stuff. There's that awareness to it. But I was just thinking about this the other day, the power, even down to our foods, you know,
hmm
that's a life force. That's
hmm
giving us life when we ingest it. Um, I'm not hinting either that, you go into your backyard and do a reading for your plants, which I guess you could do because there is evidence that when you speak to plants, that depending on the tone
hmm
and where your energy is coming from, you can either heal or harm that plant because it's quantum physics.
Yes.
And so, if you're completely, oh, this plant isn't doing anything. Oh, you're a bad plant. Well, then it's not going to last much longer. If you can revive a plant by giving it the love, just being near it, it picks up energy. It may take longer, but you will start seeing some shifts. So this is also being a product of our environment, where we go, where, who we work with, who we grew up with. We are influenced with that in so many ways. And here's another thing too. When it comes to being raised by your family, okay, and then moving away from that and going into a relationship, can the charts, can astrological charts pick up the shift of environment? So basically, let's say
Yes.
you're in a loving relationship, you have that, and the charts are leaning that you're a very strong soul, and then you go into an environment, relationship, or work that is quite the opposite. Can the charts guide you to how to work through those situations? Now, this is becoming more astrology and less tarot. I'm so
It's
sorry.
fine. It's fine. And you can use both together. That's what
You
I tell
can.
people is the tarot, you lay everything out and it tells you a story. And you mentioned plants. And I actually gave one of my plants a reading just recently because we had a
You
heat
did
wave
not.
in the Pacific Northwest. Her name is Nora. She's a Norfolk pine, and I name my plants. And I got the Ace of Cups. She needed some water. And then I got the Hermit, and she was like, bring me inside. And I went, okay. And I brought her inside. And of course, we had the heat wave, and it was
Yeah.
110, 120 degrees in some areas around here, which is just, that would have fried her. And I would have brought her in anyway, but we had air conditioning, thank goodness, because I run hot anyway. So I have an air conditioner in Washington State. Because, yeah. So that saved us and saved her. But yeah, so I do readings for plants. I don't do astrological charts because I don't know when she became a seed, but yeah, we're all energy. We're all part of that pranic force. But what was the second thing that you mentioned outside of the plants? It was oh yes, it was changing. Okay, so this is what I like about Vedic astrology is in Western astrology, the houses can tell you a lot about your journey. Like the 10th house would be your career. So you look at the planets that are aspecting that house. You look at to see if there are any planets there, what rulership that house is in, and you could give a basic understanding of what that is.
Mhm.
Step 2, you go to the Navamsa chart in Vedic astrology. That's your dharmic path. That's what your mission is here. And what that can tell you is, especially if you're in a relationship with somebody, what you're going to be like with that person. It can also reveal what kind of lessons and experiences that you're going to have in this particular lifetime. And then the D10, which is the Dasamsha chart, is career. So it can give you your strengths, it can give you your weaknesses, it can tell you what deities are going to help you. Like, for instance, I attracted a lot of narcissists at work. They pinpointed me. And Varuna is one of the gods in my chart. He's the god of the oceans and waters, and he's very, very calm, very gentle. And so my way of dealing with those personalities was to not react and not to be angry and to just go, you know what? I don't know what happened to you when you were a kid, but it's not appropriate for you to treat me this way. And if you ever want to talk or get a cup of coffee, I'm here. And it just, look, you could see the terror on their face because, like, how did she know that about me? It just switched the narrative. It's like they're coming at me.
Yeah.
And I just turn it around and go, I'm so sorry, So,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's Varuna. Okay. So, yeah. And then you can see where the planets go in the birth chart into the different divisional charts, which could be about career, it could be about relationships, it could be about your family, your ancestral line, and you could see how the planets move, and those carry an energy with them. Like, for instance, if it moves 4 houses, that's called Kendra, and that's a really good energy to have because you can expect a lot of success in that particular area for that planet. If it goes into Dushtana, which is the 6th, the 8th, or the 12th, you can expect a lot of transformation, maybe some pain along the way, disease, things like that. So There can be some doom and gloom in Vedic astrology, but and astrology in general, but you also have to include those positive elements because we're all here to learn and develop as souls. So I never go straight into doom and gloom stuff. I always add it with, I mean, I treat it the same way the tarot treated me when I was going through my divorce. There was always that star card or that empress card or a way out of the energy or a remedial technique that I could do to move out of that state of mind and out of that painful experience. So that's what I try to do in the readings.
Have you done tarot readings with Vedic astrology?
I've combined the two. I call them tarot scopes. So I'll look at someone's Vedic chart and I'll tell them what I'm seeing. And if they say, I think I had a past life in Italy, and I'll go get my past life oracle cards I think I have them right here, Brian L. Weiss.
Let's see.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
There we go.
Perfect.
Yeah, I don't think Doreen Virtue's on any of the cards anymore. But yeah, Brian Weiss, and he's written a lot of books about past life therapies and things like that. And so, yeah, this is an excellent deck. And they'll say, oh, I think I was, an Italian in a past life, and Italy will come up. And I'm like, well, I think your intuition's telling you the right thing. Or I think that, what was I in a past life that made me, so untrusting of people? And I get like, this actually happened in a reading. I got enslavement and Native American. And I went, well, that's a difficult past life to go through. Wow. And that person actually, it resonated with their particular situation, and it tied into the Vedic chart. So again, you can tie in all of these different tools together, and the different decks, like I have Moonology, I have Karma cards, I have Past Life Oracle, I have a number of God and Goddesses deck. I actually have a nakshatra deck that I also use to kind of explain the different energies in a chart.
Show one of those cards, and if you can announce the title of it so people can see.
Okay, this is called The Science of Light. Here, I'll show you the book first. It's The Wisdom from the Stars, Science of Light, beautiful cover. And it's the nakshatras of Vedic astrology, 27 cards for wisdom and advice, and it's by Madhuri Galuk. And basically, what she did was she took all of the nakshatras and she put them into a format on a card where you can just read about your nakshatra.
And it's very simple.
Yes, so it helps with the visualizations you say.
Yeah.
And this is your nakshatra, Ashlisha. It's a very beautiful nakshatra. It's called the clinging star. And what I tell people is they look at the words and it freaks them out a little bit, because it literally says regeneration, killing, healing, secrets, show of strength, and curses. And it's the power to inflict poisonous venom. Okay. So what that is venom can heal or it can poison. Correct. So the lesson for Ashlisha is, I've actually been poisoned by an Ashlisha. I was drugged. So, and I also have my spiritual teacher, my guru is an Ashlisha. So you can take this energy, this beautiful energy of the Nagas, this beautiful snake energy, because the Nagas in Vedic astrology are the holders of occult wisdom, of secrets, of the deep spiritual unknown. And Ashlisha have a connection to this energy. That's your energy. And if they connect,
this as Neptune. If I was to put a planet to it, I would read it as Neptune.
Well, it is a water sign. Ashlisha's Cancer. So it's a very mystic sign for sure.
But you can't bring over the planets into something like this for additional information.
Well, if you look there's different padas here on the side. So Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, and you said Neptune, and the fourth pada is Pisces, which in Western astrology is ruled by Neptune. So that is a connection.
Okay, so you could do it like that. You can bring in some aspects, because I know with Vedic astrology, it is very complex. It is its own system, so is Western astrology. But
yes,
what I'm finding is I'm wanting to pull from different sources. So let's say I explored Vedic astrology, and knowing what I know of Western astrology, I would automatically find myself wanting to pull information from Western astrology and put it into Vedic astrology, and vice versa. Is that even at all possible?
Yes, it's how I introduce people to their Vedic charts.
So you go from the Western.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Because I've been studying Western astrology for decades. This is pretty new. So I kind of I come at this from a more Western perspective. I was not born in India. I did not have family members that introduced me to Vedic astrology and passed it down the family line. You can get a PhD in India in Vedic astrology.
You
It's
can.
very, yes, there's PhD programs for this, master's programs. It is an
Wow.
integral part of the culture. It's how you choose your mate. It's how you choose your house. It's how you choose. It's part of the culture. So, uh, whereas here, astrology in the Western culture isn't taken as seriously, unfortunately.
Yeah. I I do remember reading, and I'm not surprised. I think in India, even when it comes to politics over there, politicians, I
Mhm.
believe they go through Vedic astrology, or there's some influence of that when it
Mm.
comes to um, possibly the outcome of an election. Um, I know I was surprised to hear this. This is many decades ago, that Nancy Reagan
Yep. Joan.
actually, yeah, consulted with an astrologer on a regular basis, and the astrologer predicted Ronald Reagan's attempted assassination. And it's just
Yep.
like, wow. And there's stuff like that in other countries, but obviously it's not going to be, revealed because of where this information's coming from.
You
And I'm
are
certain here in
correct.
the US, I'm certain big companies are possibly using some reference.
Well, who you were talking about was Joan Quigley, and that was Nancy Reagan's personal astrologer, and she had her on the White House staff, and she predicted the shooting on March 30th, 1981, I believe. And that she accredited him for saving Ronald Reagan's life, and that's what put karma cards on the map because these came out in 1988. And
Really?
so, yeah, that's what Montefiore said. He goes, Nancy Reagan sold my deck. Like she came out with that, and it changed the entire theme and the way that it was looked at. And you figure this is a Republican conservative woman who's going to an astrologer, so it was definitely a game changer for astrologers in the 80s.
Did did Joan Quigley use this particular deck?
I'm not sure if she did, but I know that she made it popular because people then started going not online, but just going to stores and looking for, because this is 1988,
Yeah.
looking for resources that they could use for astrology. And this has pictorials and it's a very simple book. And it was a way kind of in for a lot of people. And I have an original 1988 deck that I did an unboxing of that was really, really fun. But you mentioned corporations. I have been just recently approached to do work like that.
Oh,
So
excellent.
this is something that corporations do. Like, when should I come out with my branding? When should I do the release of this product?
Mhm.
And I can look at the founders charts. I can look at the current state of the planets and then determine, okay, well, actually Jupiter's going over your moon right now, and the time that you started the company is trining Venus, so this is a great time to do it. Or so you're opposite Saturn right now and Mars is going over, so I would wait a little bit, so yeah.
Yeah.
And and companies have an astrology chart. uh, Countries have an astrology chart. So when countries are founded, and yeah, so it's not just people and animals in our case.
Wow, that's amazing. I have some comments here. I've been flashing them here every now and then. Rose and Pearl um, has this for you.
Yes, Kabbalistic astrology does tie in. Actually, they came out the same time that the Sumerians and Babylonians came out with astrology. And if you look into the Kabbalistic literature, the word Mazel Tov, which means, to celebrate good fortune,
Yeah.
um, it actually it's occasions of joy. And there was actually a sign. It means constellation. Mazalat is a sign in the zodiac, and it was a star or a constellation that they saw go over, and they were like, "Oh, Mazel Tov!" It was a really good constellation to go over at that time. So I thought that was really cool that they incorporated it into their culture to the point
That's
where they would look.
brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that came out around. Oh my gosh, I think. Oh, like the Babylonians were around 4,000 BC to 125 BC, so it's old.
Wow.
Like, yeah, and then before that was India, but Yeah, Kabbalistic is it's definitely, and actually, I've learned recently that it's tied into the fixed stars and constellations in Ptolemy's Tetrabiblos. Like he will assign a Kabbalistic rune or letter, a Hebrew letter, like the
Mm.
emperor or the empress, to the star that he's describing. So you've got the tarot, you've got
Mm.
astrology, and then you've got, the more Kabbalistic ways of thinking. So it's really cool.
I'd love to have a life just doing this because it is just so fascinating. And like you said, it does splinter off. It does relate to different aspects of different forms of practices, astrology, Kabbalah, the tree of life, but the planets in
Mm,
there and the signs, and also the major arcana. Major arcana. Um, when I first started bringing astrology into the tarot, I was seeing, wow, planets and signs, even in the major arcana, very
mm,
prominent. And so, when I do my readings, um, whether live or in person, and I get some major arcanas, I have to bring in automatically the planetary influence and the signs because I'm getting more information that can help guide, the situation or the individual and what's best needed. So it's incredible, and
it is.
that's why I wanted to do this conversation, because as many of you have been seeing and listening, it is complex, but it is open so that you can bring in attributes of it into your own practice.
Yes.
Um, and do you feel, Michelle, that oh, I want to get to some questions. What I'm just sort of filling in gaps. This is one for you.
Does Hellenistic astrology also fit into this? Oh my goodness. Okay, there are many different types of astrology, and Hellenistic would be like the Greeks to the Romans. And the Romans got it from the Greeks because they enslaved them, and then they took the astrology from them. So they actually learned it from Greek slaves. Uh,
Okay.
and so it was brought to Rome by the Greek slaves. It was adopted by Julius Caesar, this type of astrology. And you remember the whole "Beware the Ides of March"? That was an astrologer.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, yeah. The woman who screamed "Beware the Ides of March" in the famous
Yeah.
Shakespearean. Yeah, that was an astrologer saying they're going to kill you. So like the stars are talking to me. Um, and oh gosh, who was it? Cleopatra actually gifted Mark Antony with an astrologer too during that time. Tiberius, he used astrology to defeat his political enemies. Let me think. Coins were minted with astrological symbols by Augustus. Um, oh, and Nero, that was a little bit later, obviously. He didn't proclaim himself emperor until it was approved by his astrologers. So you go into the Hellenistic approach, and it's the kind of the Greeks and the Romans and things like that. I think that's what your question was about. But
Hellenistic is the oldest
the
form of
oldest is
astrology?
Vedic, actually.
Vedic.
Yes, because that goes back to I believe 5,000 BC,
Okay.
and then
Is
it
there
goes
any
to
is there
Egyptian.
is there any influence that could have come from Vedic astrology into Western astrology? Like
Well,
what came first?
the Vedic came first, and then it just kind of transmuted itself into other cultures. And Babylonians were a little separate from India. They weren't because we didn't have internet. We didn't have a lot of interaction with each other outside of maybe some trade routes. But I believe that what connected all of the various forms of astrology, whether it be Chinese, Babylonian, Egyptian, Roman, Vedic, was just looking up at the stars and seeing patterns. And the example that I like to give people is the reason why the Babylonians were so successful as astrologers is because the land that they inhabited didn't have any mountains on it. It was a perfectly flat plain. And there weren't a lot of lights or electronics getting in the way of seeing the stars.
So they
And
could
so
see.
from basically 4000 BC to 125 BC, which is a very long time, they wrote everything down. Every baby that was born, every event that happened, every ruler that took rulership, every place they conquered, every war they lost, every war they won. Uh, Everything was written down. And then Ptolemy wrote the Tetrabiblos, the fixed star manual, based off of the research that the Babylonians did over that period of time. And I think that over time, cultures have done that. They look up at the stars and they see connections. They see this clock happening. Okay. For example, the last time Uranus is in Taurus right now, the last time Uranus was in Taurus was during the Great Depression. A lot of people were out of work. The economy went to hell.
Mm.
And we just went through COVID. A lot of
Yeah.
people are out of work. The economy went to hell on a
Yeah.
global level. So
Yeah.
you can kind of tie in what the planets are doing, what the stars are doing into these evolutionary cycles of living and being. And they're a little bit different with each culture because every culture brings its own unique characteristics to the table. But the theme is the same.
It's gonna, as you're explaining this, I was thinking, because of the placement of Uranus and Taurus,
Mm-hmm.
would an astrological reading be very similar in in India, Vedic astrology perspective of what's going on, in Asia, like China, Japan, different forms of astrology,
Mm-hmm.
in the Middle East, the forms of astrology that these various continents and countries practice? Do you think that they would all come and see the same perspective as a Uranus in Taurus, like the economy's bad, there's going to be pestilence, there's going to be this? Would there be any difference in other countries from readings that we would see in relation to Uranus and Taurus, whatever that outcome is?
Well, I know that because Vedic astrology is the oldest astrology, it only goes up to Saturn, and the other planets aren't
That's
really
right.
considered.
That's right.
So they would look at Rahu Ketu, which is the north and south nodes in Western astrology, and they would look at what they were doing because a lot of the attributes that you would give Neptune and Pluto and the more generational planets
Yeah.
can coincide with the nodes of the moon, which are heavily focused on in Vedic astrology as opposed to just kind of looked over. Like they go into it in Western astrology, but they are really looked at in Vedic. So it's just a different way of analysis. But for instance, right now, Ketu is in Scorpio and Rahu is in Taurus. And so you look at this Uranus energy, like this lightning bolt energy that's entering into our financials, our mortgage systems, the way that we are looking at money as a global economy. And you can say, well, Rahu's doing this, and then in Western you'd say Uranus is doing that. But the outcome, like I said, the theme is the same. So you can look at in the context of the culture, and thematically you can make a lot of connections, but the cultures are a little different, and that's what makes this world
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
So
of course. The way that we see things
mhm.
globally, it makes it very unique. I'm just like, I want to just listen. Want to listen. Um, where do you see? Question for you: where do you see your practice going? Just in general, your entire practice. Where do
Oh,
you see?
I'm taking classes, like I said, from Kamala, and she told me.
Oh,
So
okay.
she looked at my chart, my Dharma chart, which is the Navamsha, it's the D9 chart. And she says, wow, Mercury and Ketu are together in Pisces, which is a very highly spiritual sign, in your 10th house. So Vedic astrology and Vedic sciences are something that you're going to turn into a career. She goes, but the money is going to be where Jupiter and Rahu are, and that's in real estate. And I went, oh, okay. And that's kind of how things are panning out for me now. Like I said, I got this boon, and I'm going to try to turn that into something that makes me money on the side while I'm doing Vedic astrology as my main career. So it's kind of a dual influence that's going on right now. And I'm in Saturn dasha right now. And just to explain dashas in Vedic astrology are what planet is in charge of your life right now. I think it's like the driver of the car. So Saturn is driving my car right now, and he's the bringer of karmic lessons. And so when you pulled that card yesterday of the bringer, I think it was the bringer of weaver of obstacles or weaver of challenges, I believe.
Weaver of challenges, yes.
And she was holding a crow, a corvid, which is the sign for Saturn. And I've been doing my Saturn mantra to try to like do some remedies for my Saturn dasha. He brings a lot of the karmic lessons and past life comeuppances, good and bad, in your life. But in my chart, he's my yoga karaka, so he can make me famous. But he's going to put a lot of blocks in my way in the meantime. After I get out of Saturn Dasha, which is 2036, I'm going to enter into Mercury Dasha, which is owned by Kubera, the god of wealth. So I can expect a huge surge in my career at that time. But it's going to take many years of study to get there.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, this is just, you could look at a person's chart and find out like who's driving the car. That's the dashas. And there's also a sub dasha. There's a passenger in that seat, and it changes depending on, like right now I'm in Saturn Mercury. So that's really good for me because Mercury is my Atma Karaka and Ashleisha. And yeah. Anyways,
How
you
does
look
that
at the
relate
dasha.
to Western astrology? We'll go back a
So, well, Western astrology, like I said, it's kind of like looking at the outside of the house. You get a really good view of the personality, the how a person is born. I like to describe Western astrology as, imagine yourself as a shooting star coming down to Earth at a very particular time. That time signature represents your personality. It represents this life. It represents past lives. It's who you are, mind, body, and spirit in this lifetime. That's the time, down to the time, the date, the location. That's who you are. What Vedic astrology does is it goes into what you can expect in this lifetime, future lifetimes, and past lifetimes on a number of levels. And it looks into the yogas or energies that are going on between that and the other. But it's an energy, just like we're all energy. We're all, yeah. It's kind of like looking, if you're going to perform in a play and you're an actor, it's reading the lines.
Okay.
It's knowing who you're going to be in this divine Leela that we're all a part of. Okay. So,
wow, that is a lot.
I'll try to keep it more simple. I'm sorry.
I was just like, I almost wanted to say a few times, let's just kind of step back a little bit, but
Yes.
this is who you are, Michelle. You have your knowledge. No, you don't have to do that.
Okay.
This is who you are. And so this discussion that we can have anyone who is just learning different forms of astrology. They can look back at this and listen to you, and the experience that you have. Yes, it's a lot. That's why I went like this. Wow. Okay.
Oh, that's just the surface.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
know.
makes this so amazing. So,
I know. And so it goes to show Michelle's hard work and her love and her drive and her dedication for this, because like I was saying earlier, this is something that you believe in. You have that calling. So for anyone who's watching, if you feel that you have a calling and you don't know what it is, don't spend time stopping trying to figure out. What you have to do is hear what we've been talking about. It's energy. The way that you're going to find your direction is you have to move. It's not coming to you. Okay. I think most of us adults know that things don't come to us. The way that things happen is we go about life and we have these experiences. And so this is Michelle's journey and what she's gone through. And she's getting signs. She's feeling. She knows that the calling's there and will continue going in the direction that she feels is best to get to wherever she can be or get to. There could be, she mentioned that there's going to be some obstacles and whatnot, but it can shift. So I'm just saying this, that it's just really important, again, to just listen to your instincts and follow. So when you look at astrology and when you look at the tarot, you have to really be ready to make these changes and be open to it. And that's basically the premise of any form of divinatory practice. We have the tools that are there, and I say this all the time. We have the tools. How committed are you to make these changes? Okay, and that's the part. So I want to share this because Michelle's journey has been tough, ups and downs, but she's Leo sun, Western astrology, Leo sun, which would make you Cancer. Or are you still Leo in Vedic astrology?
I'm Cancer in Vedic. Yes.
You are
Cancer.
Cancer. Okay.
Pusha.
And then your moon is in Aquarius,
Yes.
remember? And
Yes.
I'm sorry, I forgot your rising.
My rising is in Vedic astrology, it's Taurus, and in Western, it's in Gemini.
Okay. But you resonate more with the Vedic side.
Well, what's interesting is in my Vedic chart, on my Rasi, my birth chart, I start in Taurus and then I move into Gemini in my dharmic chart. So I resonate with both
Okay.
because, yeah. So I literally just jump into the next rising in my dharmic chart, the chart that I'm living here. So it's
Yeah, it's amazing, you know. So if you can understand, you know, these aspects, these shifts that are going on and looking at your chart, it can make sense. You know, you just got to spend the time, find the tool that works for you. And again, and apologies, we didn't talk too much about tarot. We touched upon it, but you can bring in these aspects of the planets, the signs, and the houses, um, and get it extended with the tarot, or vice versa. I mean, has anyone come to you, Michelle, and said, "Hey, I had a tarot reading because you know the tarot," and
mhm,
they pulled out certain cards?
mhm.
Um, could you do a reading, an astrological reading based on a series of tarot cards?
Yes,
You can.
yes.
Okay. Can you explain that? And then we'll start wrapping it up because I know we've been an hour and a half. And anyone else who has questions, please feel free. You can type over us as we're talking, and I'm watching the comments. So how can we do this? How would you be able to interpret astrologically a tarot reading?
Well, for instance, if I were to get the Ace of Wands, I would ask them, "Do you have any Aries?" Like, or I'd see you have Aries in your chart.
Okay,
Okay.
moving on to that.
So the Ace of Wands is it's you know you know tarot probably better than I do because you've been doing it longer. I've only been doing it since 2013. But the wands they're very active. They're very fiery based energy. They're about getting things done. It's about taking initiative. It's about making a new start on a new project or a goal. So when I get the Ace of Wands and I see the Aries sun or the Aries moon, I can make a connection there and look at the house that it's in and look at what planets are transiting it and then tell them, okay, this is what you can expect with this project or this goal that you're thinking of based on what I'm seeing in your chart and the corresponding card that I pulled. I hope that answers it a little bit.
No, no, it does. It's just because of the system, because of
Mm,
the interpretations of tarot and astrology, they're different. But I
mhm,
thought, let me flip the tables around. If we had tarot cards, how would you interpret it astrologically? So basically, you're looking at the elements, and
mhm,
then also too, you can do it decan wise. You could see
mhm,
the placement of the minor arcana and also the major arcana and the card cards and where they fit in relation to their signs, the planets,
mhm.
so on and so forth.
Like
So,
the cups, for instance, would be very water-based energy,
mhm,
and the wands would be very fire-based. Pentacles more earth-based.
yes,
Uh, and the swords would be air based, of course. So that's the most basic interpretation. And then you go from there. And one of the books that I like is it's Tarot and Astrology, and it's by Corinne Kenner. And she does go into the Golden Dawn, I believe is what you call it.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
she
the
goes
dot
into that,
system.
and she goes into the Kabbalistic tree of life, and she ties it into the different. Let's see if I can. So
There
there's
we
that.
go. Are the planets listed in there on the Tree of Life? They are.
Let's see. She goes into it in the different chapters.
She
So, for
does.
instance,
Okay.
the Six of Wands, Jupiter and Leo, and then that would be the second decan of Leo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of my go-to guide on how I try to combine the decans with the signs and
That's
the energies that I
perfect.
was getting from the tarot. But
I am filled. My cup runneth over.
I'm so glad we connected. I heard those stellar jays in your background that I'm like, this is a very special spirit that's entering my.
Yeah, there it's also I could just feel the heat. It's just starting to come in, and I'm in the coolest part of my house right now,
Oof.
and it's kind of hard. But I want to share something here that Rose and Pearl Tarot posted here. I heard an interview with Tara Singh once where he told how he had asked the Dalai Lama how best to focus on his spirituality. And the Dalai Lama answered, make a lot of money first so that you,
And
oh, um,
they stop
don't have
of
any
any physical
physical
distraction.
distractions. It
Oh,
ties.
that's so true. That is 100% true. What a great connection that you made. But
Even,
yes,
look at
I,
this. Even people in the chat are sensing that you are in the right direction.
yes. I mean, I don't know if I told you this in extent, but I didn't have a lot of support. So when I was in college and I worked as a full-time teacher, I also worked as a nurse. I worked as a track and field coach. I nannied. I mean, just name it. I did
Yeah.
it because I had to pay my bills, and it's more and more expensive to be a human being and have a roof over your head and have utilities and everything else. And so I came across this boon that literally is going to bring down my bills to a point where I can do a deep dive into Vedic studies and astrology and turn this into a career. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. And the boon I actually found in my Vedic chart, it came up. So it was really interesting to see how everything tied together and created this opportunity for me.
Would you consider getting a degree?
Well, I'm taking classes from the Vedic astrologer right now. She's
Yes.
the, she's highly certified. So I think that my technique in moving forward is I am going to continue taking classes from her and going to conferences and then seeing where that leads me. And if a degree wants to show itself, then I will pursue it. If not, I will get any certification that I need to turn this into something even bigger and better. But right now, I'm taking classes from her and reading lots of different books. I just got this one, Yogas and Astrology, by Dr. K.S. Chirac. He's a doctor of Vedic astrology. Another one is Important Combinations, 300 by B.V. Raman. And so I'm reading the PhD books now, and they're absolutely fascinating. And I can start incorporating a lot of the different yogas and astrological combinations into my readings to make them, more deeper, more meaningful and in
Yeah.
depth. So
Do you offer any workshops?
I've been asked that because I have a teacher type of personality, and
Do
I think I'm going to do that once I have some more free time, I guess, if that makes any sense.
get through your
Um,
studies first, right?
yes, yes. Right now, I'm just studying from Kamala and doing all of that, and I've read all of her books. And what was interesting was I skipped the introductory courses and I just dived right into the rules and interpretations course. And I immediately just picked it up running. Like I understood it. And
Yeah.
then to see that I studied this in a past life made
Wow.
sense. So, and that's another thing I tell people is be very gentle with yourself as you're getting into this practice, because like you said, pick a deck that's soft and speaks to you and works with you and works with your energy and doesn't make you feel anxious or like you're not getting it fast enough, because you have to remember I've been doing this since I was 9. So I did not do this overnight. This is something that I I've been studying for a long time that I had to drop for a while because of the domestic situation that I was in, and that I picked up again. So it's a journey, and just treat it as an unveiling process, and don't put any pressure on yourself as you start to learn uh, how the stars and the constellations and the planets affect you and the world that we're living in.
Yeah, information comes to you when it's ready.
Hmm.
And when you're, you know, the analogy, you're the vessel. So when you're open to receiving it, you will. And and don't be surprised when all the information really starts flooding in, because then it starts showing this is your time. You have this opportunity of knowledge, don't throw it away. Don't throw it away, utilize it. And for you, this is extremely important. You know it deep down in your heart, even below, that this is where you need to be. And so it's it's interesting because for me, I never I never thought I'd be where I am right now. I
Mm.
mean, some people, they have different perspectives as to where they are now versus where they were back then. But I used to do production work in Los Angeles. So I had responsibilities working with clients, making sure things are put together, so on and so forth. And um, and it was until I started bringing astrology into the tarot that I realized why my work ethic was, it's softened up a little bit. So I need to get a little bit harder with myself.
Mm.
Why my work ethic when it came to doing production work was as intense as it was
Mm.
is that my Capricorn is in the 10th house. So
Oh,
it,
okay.
but it felt right when it
Yeah.
came time to production time, be there on time, get everything in order. I
Hmm.
wasn't dictating, but this is when I was being told that it's like, you got it, let's do it. So it became natural. But to do Capricorn with the 10th house in tarot, it's a little different. That energy, it's restrictions, it's discipline. You can have discipline in your practice, but my discipline's coming from a place of order and getting things
Mm.
organized. And I don't know if tarot, if there is that, if there is a sense of having order and organization, because that's restrictive. Tarot should be free flowing. So I don't know. I don't know how
Hmm.
you feel about something like that. The
Well, the card,
restrictions, I think, should be being dedicated to your practice, you know.
yes.
But the actual action, I don't feel that you should be hard on yourself when it comes to
No,
the tarot. Maybe astrology, because astrology is a disciplined form of practice.
it is, but at the same time, if it's also intuitive. So if you're too disciplined with yourself and you're too mental about it, you don't allow the intuition to enter the more
Correct.
unseen feel of
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
But I love that you mentioned 10th house, which is ruled by Saturn, Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, and you said very hardworking, very organized, very diligent. And that's Saturn. That literally is. He's asking you to be completely realistic about it, concerned about what you're doing it, wait before you really jump into anything. He sets up a lot of restrictions and limitations in order to bring out the maturity of your soul.
hmm,
And he can oppose some limits in the process. So that's that very Saturn based karmic energy. And a lot of that was you working through any past or residual karma off before you could really enter your spiritual practice. And I
yeah,
think we both went through that. We went through a lot of service, a lot
yeah.
of work that necessarily didn't really speak to our soul purpose or our dharmic purpose, but we had to get through that to open up the door into our more spiritual development and dharmic path. So,
And that also happened when I explored yoga.
mm,
When yoga just changed everything. So, but I was still doing production work at the same time. So I think that the yoga exposed that side of me a little bit more of what I felt that I needed. And then in turn, doing that asana and the meditation, I started going back to my tarot practice because it opened up that spiritual side. It's hard to be spiritual when you're doing production work. There's no time for that in that sense.
mhm.
And that's probably, you more or less hit it on the nail. That's probably what I was looking for. But then when I finished that and I left LA and I moved up here to the mountains, um, it was this is the time, like you were saying, when you moved to where you are and you're surrounded by nature and whatnot. It's like, okay, now I can focus on me. I don't,
Mhm.
I'm building this up. I don't know if this is going to even be a career. I like where I am right now. I like where things are going, and so I want to just go with it, like you're doing right now.
Yep.
So I may go back to production work. I don't know. But for
Oh,
now, this is where I am. Hi, sweetheart.
yeah.
I hear
That's
you.
Fox. He's the triple Aries. There's someone walking through the yard, so he's got to let us all know.
Um, let's see. So yeah, it's the journey, it's the process. And I'm
Yes.
excited for you because it's happening to you now. You're younger than me. It's like, do it, do it. Me, it's taken me a little bit longer. And
Mm.
I do remember having a tarot reading done when I turned 30, that it was hinted in the cards that where I wanted to be, or where I was going to be in life was going to come much later in life.
Mm.
And so that's okay. If it happens now and I'm here for maybe another 7 years or whatever, I'll make the best of it. This is my last opportunity. I don't go back. I don't
Mhm.
recycle. All of us don't recycle back to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is it. So this is, the time to work with whatever is being gifted to you.
When someone asked what the deck was, it's Karma
Yes,
Cards by Monte Farber.
I'm gonna, let's see here. I'm gonna just type it here so that it's there for someone to look back.
Oh,
Is
and
it,
just to let you know, you're going through your moon dasha right now, which is an Ashleisha, which is highly mystic. Highly mystic.
are you doing astrology behind my back?
Yeah, I looked up your chart. I'm sorry. You're going to enter Mars Dasha, and that's your Atma Karaka that's coming up, and that's going to be amazing energy. So I'm excited for you.
Ooh, okay. I don't think that far ahead. Whatever happens, happens.
Yes.
Oh, the karma cards. Is it only Monty Farber,
Yeah.
or his wife Amy is part of it? Does
He
Amy do
made,
something else?
she's on most of his projects, but this was the one he did in 1988. This was prior to marrying Amy, I believe.
Okay.
So yeah, I think they might have been engaged at the time, but yeah, she was the muse that inspired the cards because she taught him about astrology, and yeah, and so I think that what he says is Amy was studying astrology and I was studying her, so that's how he got into astrology. They're very cute, so the super couple.
Are the signs are compatible and all of that?
He's an Aquarius and she's an Aries, so yeah, so that
Okay.
fire air energy. Yeah, and then he's got a Pisces moon, and I believe her moon is in Libra. So yeah, it's
So
Hasta in Vedic. But
I think I remember our conversation where we were saying that the best compatibility, maybe work or intimate or like a personal relationship, it's when the sun and moon signs of the opposite person. So if someone has a sun in Taurus and the other person has a moon in Taurus, is that where the connection is
uh,
best?
well, it depends on where the planets are in the chart and how they're
Okay.
aspecting each other. So it goes a little bit deeper. I'm sorry. It's not that cut and dry. But just to give you an example, people are like, you married a triple Capricorn, and the only sign that you have in your chart, your Western chart, is Virgo and Venus. That's an Earth. Like everything else is by like water or air or fire. So what I say is, well, his moon is in Virgo and my Venus is in Virgo. So that's kind of the connection that I make, is the way I love, the way I look at relationships is the way that he thinks, and his emotions come about.
Okay.
So uh, it's different for everybody. I've also noticed that, for instance, Monte Farber's Mars is in Libra and his wife's moon is in Libra, and he's very protective of her. He's a kind of a warrior spirit for his wife's energy because she's got this beautiful mystic artist energy that's just, and he comes along and he's like this like mountain of a guy, and like no one's gonna mess with Amy if she's out with Monte. It's just
Yeah.
kind of like this warrior energy that I get from him about her. And so that's like the Mars moon energy, because the moon's more feminine and the Mars is like, I gotta protect this woman,
Yeah.
so I think it's different for everybody, and it also depends on what planet really resonates with you. Like, for instance, in Vedic astrology, my Mercury is my Atma Karaka. It's the significator of my soul. And so I pay attention to where that planet goes in every single chart and how it relates to the other planets and to other people's charts as well, if I'm looking to get in a relationship or a business partnership or something like that. But like yours is in Mars, for instance, which is my Atmaya Karaka. That's the minister of my soul. So I could get really good advice from you and really rely on you for,
Mm.
spiritual lessons and support, because you have a very good sign for me as far as that minister role. So
Mhm.
every person plays a different role in somebody else's life. But
Well, it's interesting you mentioned minister because
mhm,
my my birth card, my tarot birth card is the Hierophant.
perfect.
So I was just like, oh, this is going to be an interesting year since we're in the 5 year. 2021 is just like, okay, let's just go with it. Um, Gerald, I'm typing it in. I don't read charts, but Michelle does.
Yep. I'll type it in. It's astrologicaltarot.com is my website.
Okay.
So I'll type it in the chat here.
I will do readings. I could bring astrological influences for a reading for you, Gerald, but I can't. Charts, no. I'd probably just get everything backwards. Um, does anyone else have any questions? We've
I
just been
noticed
talking.
I just saw someone ask, they said that when they do projects at work, they go to the moon phases to determine
That
how
was,
to.
I think that was Gerald. Yeah.
Gerald, yeah, that's excellent. And a deck that I like to use is Moonology. It's the Moonology deck, and it's by, let's see, Yasmin Boland. Yasmin Boland. And so she does like, oh, here we go. Full moon in Aries, a fiery climax approaches. I can see if we can go here. I'm not that great with, oh, here we go.
There we go. A
little bit of a
Do you,
glare there.
do you have the Moon Oracle deck?
Uh,
I'm not trying to plug it in,
I
but
just have Moonology Oracle cards. I will look that up though. That sounds like a great deck.
that
I've had to kind of put a stop on myself a little bit because I have so many.
again, work with the deck. If that deck is working for you, don't get any more decks. Thank God I'm not a collector. I keep saying this. This is
Yeah.
what Gerald.
I
Here we
track
go.
success or failure based on Mercury retrograde. Well, Mercury might be your Atma Karaka. It's mine. And so I noticed that my electronics go down, my website gets hacked, uh, appointments get canceled. If I have like a doctor's appointment or something, they'll call and say, our computer system's down. We can't see you for 3 weeks, stuff like that. So Mercury in your chart is probably, if you look at the retrogrades and they affect you more than other people, that might be your Atma Karaka, which is the significator of your soul. So it has a more profound effect on you as opposed to maybe Jupiter retrograde or Saturn retrograde, or in your case, Amy, it would be Mars. So, and your Mars Dasha is coming up November of 2022. So, sorry, it's going to be really big.
Oh my
You're
God.
going to get a surge of energy that you've never had before. It's going to be pretty intense.
Oh,
So,
it's way too far in advance because now
sorry.
you got the Aries side of me. You got my face all red and stuff.
Well, and you really, the reason I believe that you resonate with Aries is because Mars, which rules Aries, and Scorpio, which is highly spiritual, is your Atma Karaka. It's the significator of your soul. So you're a spiritual warrior. You're able to have this just strong warrior resonance about you. And in addition to that, combine it with that intuitive, mystical sense as well. So that's a beautiful Atma Karaka to have.
There's always been something with with the unknown, what's not there, that I've always wanted to connect with, and
Mm-hmm.
that goes back to my cousin, who knew me as a baby and babysat me and stuff and introduced me to all the occult unknown stuff, paranormal activity that she experienced. But it made sense to me. It didn't scare me, while her sister would be like, don't talk like that, don't say Ouija board.
Mm.
Her sister had a bad encounter with a Ouija board, and then I think not too long after that happened, her sister, the apartment that she was living in, the building caught on fire, and that she was just like,
Oh.
no, no. There's nothing to fear with someone who has that kind of knowledge. If something does
Mm.
happen, it's just something you have to be aware of and just pay attention to it. But if someone is constantly predicting good or bad things, don't fear it. This is this person's message or gift. You could take it or leave it. But and if it starts happening, then it's just something to be aware of. I bless Lavender Moon, Amber, who she goes by Lavender Moon. She has a paranormal um, episode once a week where she brings in people to share paranormal experiences.
Mm,
And she's asked me, and I can't do it because I don't have that kind of connection. Only
mm,
twice I've had something that was predictive, and unfortunately, it startled me because it did happen, and
mhm,
I can't talk about it in person because it was very personal, and I haven't had any episodes like that, and I don't want to. I think people who are predictive in that way, where they see things and they actually happen,
mhm,
they are they are very unique. They are very powerful, not in a godlike way, but they have an energy that was placed upon them. And so I that's something that I can't really explore. And that probably explains why I don't have any paranormal activity because
mm,
I've closed it.
mhm,
I already had the experiences and I don't want it.
mm.
Okay. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, to face something like that.
It it's not, it's neither. It's basically what your soul needed to experience at that moment,
Yeah.
and you moved on and learned what you needed to learn from it.
Yeah.
And
It's
I've met mediums, and it's literally in their chart. I looked at the Chinese lunar mansion that his moon was in, and I said, "Oh, you're a medium." He goes, "Oh yeah, I can speak to the dead." Like, like, like really? Like, oh, okay. Like it's Tuesday,
yeah.
So it's found in charts, and there are some people that are very comfortable with that energy, and others like I don't know what I would do if there were disembodied spirits or other entities that wanted to come and have a chat while I was going about my day.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be driving as it happened. I could tell you that. I
Not good.
have had a couple of experiences and they scared me at first,
Yeah.
but it's probably just not energetically what I'm supposed to be doing. We're all
Exactly.
here and we're all playing our roles in this play, and not everybody can be the lead, and not everybody could, make the set, and not everybody can be the director. We all have our own part to play, and some
Yes.
people that's their part to play, and it's a beautiful gift that they bring, and it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, we have to embrace it. We'll do Meg Rose. We'll do your question really quick because I'm getting tongue tied. Um, so, how do you feel about this?
So I'm a Sag Sun, Aries Moon, Scorpio rising. So that tells me that you were born toward the end, the third decan, because there's a 24 to 25-degree difference between the signs in the
Okay.
sidereal calculation, which is Vedic, and the tropical calculation, which is Western. So given that you are a Sagittarius Sun, Aries Moon, and Scorpio rising, well, that's a lot of Martian energy.
In both
And
Western and
Jupiter,
Vedic.
yeah. Yeah. Mars, that's a combination of Mars and Jupiter. I'd have to see what degrees you were in, but that's really interesting. Um, but yeah, that would tell me that you're probably Mula in the sun, and your moon might, it's probably in Bharani, or let's see, if you're in Western, that would be Ashwini. You're probably Ashwini Nakshatra. But I would have to look at your chart to see the exact degrees that are going on. But yes, sidereal is the same as Vedic. It's a calculation. And we use the mean nodes instead of the true nodes in our calculations in Vedic astrology.
Sorry, I am replying to Tarot Stash. He's going to be baking bread.
Oh,
Uh,
nice. I bet his house
mm.
smells amazing.
Gerald, really quick before you go, um, what's your sun sign? I don't want to know anything else because I know yesterday I was doing all animal and nature oriented decks, taking a break from astrology. What's your sun sign? If you want to share, we'll wait.
Okay.
Um, so I want to thank everyone for watching, taking part in the chat. Thank you for keeping us company, keeping this very casual. Um, and we have the karma cards to look after. Please state the name of the Vedic astrology deck that, if you could show again.
Yes. Let's see. It is the Science of Light, Wisdom from the Stars.
Okay.
Okay. The
By,
Nakshatras of Vedic Astrology, and it's by Madhuri G, which is Geluk, Geluk.
and then the karma cards is by,
Montefarber, and it's Montefarber, and it's at Montefarber on Instagram and Facebook. And Montefarber.com is his website. So he also has Enchanted World books.
and he's created some other decks as well. He created, like, I think, a deck that's called Astrology Oracle.
His wife is the main artist, and he creates the words. So they've got the Creativity Oracle, they've got the Enchanted Tarot, they have the Enchanted Love Tarot. They have over 50 products.
Okay.
So, and I think it's like theenchantedworld.net or .com is their website. But if you just look up at Montefarber or at Amy Zerner on Instagram or Facebook, they're excellent. They actually respond back to fans and answer questions, and they're very out there. And Amy has a new TikTok, which is a lot of fun. It's at Amy Zerner, and she's doing
Oh,
some
wow.
really fun videos with her products, and it's very clever.
She goes by Amy Zerner or Amy Farber?
Amy Zerner.
Oh, so sorry. I said Amy Farber for
Yeah,
the obvious reason.
yes.
You're Scorpio.
Oh, that makes sense.
I
It's
was
very
thinking
intuitive. He's a
Libra.
psychic.
Oh, for Tarot Stash?
Yeah, he's his Scorpio.
Okay, yeah. I thought you were making reference to something else.
Oh,
I was,
sorry. Yeah,
no, no,
very
no.
psychic.
I was thinking Libra. Almost close. So to keep in touch with Michelle Marie, do you go by Michelle or Michelle Marie?
I go by Michelle.
Okay. I have all the information. I have her website. Her website has all the different readings that she does, tarot and astrology. It's a combination that startles people. And right now, your focus, Instagram, I'm sorry, is astrological tarot. All the links, I have it all there. Right now, your focus is exclusively Vedic astrology, correct?
It is, but I still
Or-
do all of the different readings.
Okay.
So yes, because
Okay.
this is just kind of a compilation of all of my studies. So if someone wants a Vedic chart read in addition to an oracle deck or a tarot reading, I can combine the two. I work with each client. It's kind of like an a la carte service. So
Okay.
if they don't find a particular service that resonates with them, I encourage them to email me info@astrologicaltarot.com with a list of questions or any concerns they might have, and then we can set something up just for them.
Okay. Sounds good. Which is the way it should be when you're doing readings, to
Exactly.
accommodate what, a potential client or customer needs.
Yes.
Work with what they want. Oh, he's all water.
It's so psychic.
Psych.
He doesn't need cards or charts. He can just like sense it.
That's hard. And then we have the new moon in Cancer. Well, tomorrow I will be doing a live at 6 o'clock talking about the moon energy.
Mm.
I have the deck upstairs, Michelle. I'll show it to you when we go offline. The Moon Oracle deck.
Oh yeah.
That's the deck that I work with when I do my Mystic Moon Mondays. So for those who are watching and they don't know what I'm talking about, Mystic Moon Mondays I do about twice each month, where I talk about the sign that the moon is, the sign that is placed in the current position of the moon. So it could be new moon, waxing, waning phase of the moon. And I explore the energy and influences of the moon when it's in these different signs, and also the phases. And I love the moon energy because it's the second luminary after the sun that we connect to, so we feel things, and I feel it's very influential. I really
Mhm.
wish there was more talk about this, so that's why I do my Mystic Moon Mondays, and I post moon readings to share with people about just the influences that the sign has when it's in the moon
Mhm.
phase. So that'll be tomorrow. I think I have it set for 6 o'clock. So I'm going to talk about the new moon in Cancer,
Mhm.
and specifically for some reason this week for Cancer has been pretty interesting for me. I've been
Mhm.
feeling the attributes of a Cancer. I have Cancer in 2 planets, but in particularly this week, I've been very quiet in the
Mhm.
sense I've been just more reflective. I've been, because of, not so much the heat, I've been wanting to close the blinds. I really don't want to be exposed to anything. So it's been an interesting week. So I'm going to talk about, for example, something like that, how Cancer can make us be more introverted, and a
Mhm.
time for healing and nurturing whatever's going on. So I'll talk more about that. All right. Any last words, Miss Michelle?
Oh,
Anything
I
that
was
you?
just going to say that your Atma Karaka, which is Mars, in your Navamsha chart, it moves into Cancer. So you are 100% on the right track. Cancer, that home energy, the highly
Yeah,
spiritual moon energy, it moves into Cancer in your dharmic chart. So, and Cancer is a very highly spiritual, mystic, and beautiful sign. So,
yeah, yeah. It's very. See, I'm just like just thinking about this past week. Anyhow, I'm gonna sign off because I feel myself kind of fading. Um, Gerald, thank you so much. Please keep in touch. Reach out to Michelle if you have any questions for reading. Everyone else, Meg Rose Honey Ritual. We did have a lot of roses today. Rose and Pearl Tarot, if you're still watching, thank you so much. Um, and Pomona Rose, I know she already left. Thank you so much, Pomona. And Pomona Rosica. So sorry. And I think that was it. Everyone else, Patricia, thank you so much as well. Everyone else who's been watching, thank you for your support. Subscribe, follow Astrological Tarot, Michelle Marie. I will see you all hopefully tomorrow. If not, I will catch you next time again soon. Have a wonderful day, everyone.